I don't even have to explain. The sixth tactic is to conflate prescriptions and descriptions, to implicitly make the recognition of human evolution and clustering packaged with racial separatist or even quote-unquote supremacist views. Right? So that if you adopt the descriptive views on race, you also have to adopt some prescriptive views that are supposedly connected to these descriptive views on race. One last point, and this isn't a tactic of any kind, but what you will find is people coming to racial hereditary conclusions, basically saying that that's what they are, but then denying that they are in fact racial hereditarians because the label has been successfully associated with the mystery of racism.
Well, it's good to see you getting the old band back together. No, there's no mystery here. This is the same old-timey racism from 100 years back. Nothing's changed. That's why Stephen Jay Gould's book is so, frankly, kind of amazing. The Mismeasure of Man describes the exact tactics that you people used back then that you're using now. The same tactics that were used 100 years ago. Nothing has changed. There's no new ideas. You just try to repackage it and make it into something that really isn't. You are racists. Otherwise, why would this be so important to all of you? Seriously. Ultimately, let's pretend for a moment, just for a moment, that you're right. And that there is a very real genetic intelligence difference between races. Why does that matter? Does that somehow change things? Does that make them any less human? Does it make them any less worthy of the protection of the law? Or the Constitution of the United States? Of course, you apparently recommended that we use the National Guard to protect the Constitution so that you could abolish the Constitution. That's what someone said in one comment section on Sophia's most recent video. I find that remarkable. And of course, it's not true. There's so much involved in this that you can't even begin to understand it. Why has Africa never managed to pull out of the doldrums? It had hundreds of years of imperialism, where their country was literally stripped bare of anything valuable, including its people. At the height of the exportation of slaves out of the Congo Basin, 5,000 people a year were being brought out of there. 5,000 people a year. Leopold's rule in the Congo probably killed another 10 million. It's a Holocaust on par with what the Nazis did. Of course, you don't believe that. In 1961, the author of The Ghost of Leopold described meeting a CIA operative inside the Congo when he was doing a story, bragging about the fact that they'd just taken out a left-wing agitator who was a leader in the Congo. There used to be an individual in the French government whose sole responsibility was to decide which leaders in Africa to kill and which ones to keep so that they could maintain chaos in the country. To make matters worse, when these areas were conquered, as David Graeber describes in Debt, the First 5,000 Years, he did a lot of his anthropological work on Madagascar. After the French conquered it, they actually charged the price of the war, an aggressive war waged by France, not started by the Malaganese. They charged them with paying for the war. The same thing happened to Haiti in its successful bid for freedom. Backed by the United States and other governments, they forced Haiti to pay an indemnity to the French and the British and the other groups that were defeated by the Haitians. They were forced to take out bank loans that they still can't repay, economically depressing them. And in order to get these loans from the World Bank, they have to devalue their currency. It's a rigged game, fringe. And it's a rigged game that the Africans haven't been able to win for a very long time. Why is Africa not an advanced nation today? Look in the mirror. That's why. We have an enormous responsibility for what happened there. And rather than admit our culpability, you just blame it on them. Kind of like charging them for wars they didn't start. Right. This is ridiculous. There's no other way of putting this than you people are racist. There's no mystery here. You are racists. And I find you one of the most remarkable specimens of all because of your complete lack of understanding of where you stand in this continuum yourself. You are a homosexual man. You know who else was? Ernst Röhm. You know who Ernst Röhm was? He was head of the SA, stormtroopers that helped Nazis gain power during the pre-World War II years. He was a personal confidant of Hitler, even though Hitler didn't particularly like him. The problem was that Ernst Röhm was also an openly practicing homosexual. The Nazi eugenic ideas didn't jive with that. Ernst Röhm was a defective. And in the Night of the Long Knives, Ernst Röhm got his due. He got his repayment for helping the Nazis come to power. Taken away by the SS and essentially shot in the head. What do you think they would do to you, Ryan? Do you think that you're one of these people that's going to rise to power if you get your way? Or are you just going to be in one of the other sad also-rans that kind of fell in with the Nazis? That's one of the more remarkable things about the Nazis. With very few exceptions, for instance, of Heydrich. These were mostly utter abject failures in life. They were complete and total losers who found themselves in positions of power. They weren't all that bright. They weren't very good at what they did. Kind of like you. And yet they managed to perpetrate one of the greatest crimes in history. But they did it by eliminating people that they didn't like, and you would be in that group. You would be considered genetically defective, and you would have to go. So what do? Spend your time attacking every single minority you can in service to an idea that you aren't a part of. Why? What made you this way? Seriously. You claim that we don't come to our position through logic and reason. That's all we've got. That's how we arrived at this. The evidence instructs us. But we try to look at all the evidence, not the evidence that already confirms what we believe. Sophia already said it. You are politically motivated. So knowing that you are politically motivated, why and how should we believe anything you say? Why should we take you seriously? We already know you will lie, cheat, steal, act like an asshole, block people, do whatever you want. Now normally, well actually all the time, I can't really object. Your channel is your channel. You want to block people from commenting on it, that's fine. But you're not acknowledging any of this evidence. Instead, we have to deal with your race-hard buddies trolling our channels, and you pretending not to hear the things we say. How does that serve the facts or truth? Take a good long hard look in the mirror. You're part of the problem, not part of the solution so far. And you are in that genetically defective group that would be exterminated by people who think like you. Along with so many of the rest of us, we would be inconvenient to deal with. You would be in that group too, along with all the ivory tower intellectuals and the communists and the socialists and all the other people you hate. Do you even realize that you have more in common with any of us than you have with any of them? You would be a target too. Maybe you should start thinking about that. Because what happens when you burn every single bridge you have, huh, French? Who's going to come for you in the end when they've come for everybody else? You ever thought about that? It's a lonely place to be when you know that no one is there to help you, because you have essentially turned them against you. You've ostracized anyone who could possibly help you. That's what you do. Now, if that's what you want to do, that's your prerogative, fine. But how about you just stop talking about this so that we don't have to spend all this time and effort trying to correct you, or just making you look like a fool, which is basically what I'm doing. And that's fun. It gives me something to do. But you can stop and just give it up, because apparently you tend to change your mind quite often. What are you this week? Are you a fascist? You were an anarcho-capitalist at one point. Apparently you're not an anarcho-capitalist anymore. You certainly are a statist, even though you claim not to be. True Puka's right. You're a fucking statist. You and your buddies are all statists, actually. The only way you can carry out your actions is if you have the power of a state behind you. That's it. There's no way around that. Otherwise, you'll be open to any power that would be greater than you, particularly a state. It's not the state that you guys hate. You hate the fact that the people in the state won't let you do whatever you want. It's the equivalent of having 4-year-old children running around screaming about the fact that we didn't buy them a toy inside the mall. You tell them to save up their allowance, they don't want to. They want all things, everything right now. No hard work, no nothing to do with it. That's what you want. You want everyone to be equal. You are the egalitarians. You can't stand the fact that anybody could be possibly elevated above you based on their merits. So what do? You break all the rules. You get rid of the rules. No more peer review, no more degrees, no more state, no more nothing. And that's where this kind of ends now. Because what we're really talking about here is more to do with the fact that all of you don't want a state, not because you think it's the best thing for society. You think it's the best thing for you. It gives you the opportunity to lie, cheat, steal, do whatever you want, and kill whoever you want, maim whoever you want, destroy whoever's life you want. I don't think that's a good way to look at things. But that's just me.